Welcome to episode 367 of the West Tigers podcast. Joel's on holiday somewhere, apparently. Eddie's out exploring the nightlife. And Steve has just made a big move, so he's not on tonight. So tonight I'm joined by the poor man's Eddie Otto, Nick Hayes, and Declan McCutcheon. How are you guys?
Not bad, Gary. I feel a bit flattered that you're liking me to Eddie, even if it's the poor man's version.
Mate,
So
it's definitely wish.com. Like, there's no...
I feel like, especially the way you introduced myself and Declan as your co-hosts or your teammates tonight. Yeah, I just feel like I'm part of the scrap heap, but I'm happy to jump on board, mate, if there's no one else available. Thanks for having me, Gary.
How are you, Declan?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I was just enjoying my Friday night, but then I think we got a bit of a spray from Mr. Eddie Otto to like record something. But like those preseason sessions where the coach is really trying to just like assert their authority. So, but yeah, happy to be here. I don't think I've been on the pod for a while, so I'm kind of keen to have a bit of a West Tigers chat.
So I did hear you were just waiting until Eddie wasn't hosting one to jump on.
Yeah. There's just it's a bit toxic at the moment between us, like John Bateman and the Tigers. Just and then yes, Eddie is John Bateman in this situation. So yeah, it's just, but we'll walk through it. We'll walk through it.
So I thought we'd start with the traditional one word. It's been a fairly eventful off season so far. So your one word for the off season so far, Declan.
I reckon rejuvenating. It really feels like there's a new start to the club. This really does. I know we talk about all the time how it's a new season, a new kind of prospect of or chance of being successful. But with all the new recruits coming in, the new sponsorship, the new jersey, it just really feels like there's a bit of rejuvenation at the club at the moment. And hopefully we really have turned a corner. And this can be the start of the official turnaround of our on-field lack of success. Because yeah, I just really feel like something's different about this upcoming season. We've recruited well. We've managed to get our sponsorship in order. It seems like everything except for the John Bateman situation is quite settled. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But yeah, I'm just feeling a lot of rejuvenation at the moment.
You do say, mate, that the off season is kind of the time the stocks of the West Tigers go up. It's not just that again, is it?
Maybe it could be. I mean, we tend to do our best recruitment when we're not playing. So just I think take that as you will. But yeah, I think it's just every NRL fan will be optimistic at this time of year. But I don't know, it just feels a little bit different this time. I'm not sure. Hopefully, this time next year we're not saying the same thing, but because we've actually made the top eight or pushed for the top eight. But who knows?
You know what, Declan? You're right, because you talk about it feels different. 12 months ago, in terms of recruitment during the preseason or off-season, we were effectively plugging holes. Like we let Brooksy leave and we didn't have a halfback. And I think it was probably exactly a year ago we were sitting here thinking, well, there's some stories about Aiden Season. I can't remember if he was locked in at this stage. But it wasn't until a little bit later, I think it was closer to Christmas or even after Christmas, where we'd locked in Bud Sullivan, and he was really an unknown of how he was going to go. He wasn't a regular first grade halfback, and then there was talk about bringing Latu Fainu across, and he's only an 18-year-old kid with not much experience at all. So it's very different. The recruitment at this time of year, this year, we're really building on what we have or had over the previous 12 months. So yeah, there's a lot of excitement coming up for me.
Is that your one word, or do you have something else, Nick?
My one word is anticipation. It's really off that conversation. So because it's so different, and Declan hit the nail on the head, as I said, just the anticipation for what's coming up for 2025. We've built really well in a lot of key positions. As we've probably spoken, we probably still would like to find another back rower. We're not sure what's going with Bateman as well. But the players that we're bringing in, we're going to cover all that in this pod tonight. It really is building nicely for 2025, and I'm actually really looking forward to next season. Whereas this year at the start of the year, I think a lot of us picked it. I honestly thought we were going to struggle to get off the bottom, and we didn't. But I can really see a chance that we can turn that around next year.
Now, since you've both been on the pod, there has been a fairly key signing in Terrell May. He signed up for the next couple of years at the club. your thoughts on that. I'll give you both an opportunity to speak about it, but your thoughts on that first, Nick.
Uh, I know we have a lot of side conversations, Gary, and you were really pumping him up. But what I do like about Terrell May is he's coming into that age. What is he, 25? So he's approaching the better years of his career, especially as a prop. He plays big minutes. He's impactful. He's quick. I've been listening to a lot of pods and reading a lot of stuff about him since he signed with the Tigers. I know he's got really good ball skills. He throws a good ball as well. So I think he brings a very different dynamic in the props for what we've had. When I think about what we've had over the last few years, especially the last season or two, we've played Alex Twal at 13 and at prop and off the bench, and he's tried to be that sort of link between the forwards and the backs when they played him at 13. But I'm not saying Terrell May is going to be a 13, but I just think he probably will play a slightly different style of prop than what we've seen, especially like Stefano is really a hit and barge type of prop. Whereas I think May might bring a little bit of a different dynamic, which I'm looking forward to seeing. I can't wait.
Is it a signing you're keen on, Declan?
I mean, as soon as the story on the Sydney Morning Herald dropped about how the Roosters were just out of thin air up here, just letting him go for no reason, I was immediately just like, "Yeah, we should sign this guy immediately." And it was just so refreshing as well because, like, two things. One, there was at least four clubs interested in him, like publicly, like the Eels, us, the Bulldogs, and the Dragons. And for us to win, like a kind of four-way shootout for a prop where like there's not many good props on the market. I think the only other one that would be available is Leo Thompson, and he's not for next year, but for 2026. So I just think it was just so good of the club just to actually sign someone in a competitive market. And then the second part is we're all kind of like talking back and forth about how we lost Stefano and him and losing Isaiah Papali as well. We were potentially weaker in that middle. I think we've actually managed to like find that like he like, I still think Stefano's going to be good for the Melbourne Storm, but I think in terms of like a like for like replacement, I think Terrell May is a better player at the moment as it currently stands. Like I think Stefano will excel in the Melbourne system and he'll look good there. But I think for what we need at the moment, we've done a fantastic job of just upgrading into a player that kind of fits more of the modern style, as Nick was saying. Like he can kind of do a little bit of everything. He's got a really good all round game. He can make a lot of tackles. He can play big minutes. His mirrors is really good. I saw on a few podcasts he was talking about how he's actually wants to expand his ball playing ability, but because he was playing at the Roosters with more traditional front rowers, he didn't really feel like he could show that part of his game off. So I reckon under someone like Benji Marshall, when we do kind of lack that creative middle forward, he could really step into that role for us. So yeah, just really good for a number of fronts. Obviously, like the fact that the Roosters did let him go when they have lost a few key personnel does beg the question of why. But I think that when you're the Tigers and you're trying to come up with these kind of signings, you do have to take some calculated risks. And I think from everything we know so far, I think I was happy to take that risk. I think he's going to be a really good player for us.
And I think that's quite crucial, especially at this time of year. At this time of year, signing players for 2025, you're only going to be signing players that other clubs are letting go. If you're signing someone who's off contract, then there's obviously hasn't been a lot of interest in them. So for me, sure that there's lots of stories around him, and you can argue there's a little bit of risk around the signing due to those stories, but they're the type of players that you can sign for 2025 at that point. I the key part for me when you compare Steph and May is May showed last year what we're hoping to see from Stefano. And that's the key for me. And you mentioned Declan upgrading. You have a look at our signings over the past, especially the big ones. You could make an argument probably around Bird and Royce Hunt. But when you look at guys like Luai and Taruva and now May, for once we're starting to sign better players than we've got going out, Declan.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so nice to see because usually the Tigers are the last team to adapt their squad to like the modern style of play. But now, we've got big, robust outside backs. We've got someone like Royce Hunt, who's that kind of like Steph, that big guy who's not going to pump out a lot of minutes, but he will kind of like pass the eye test in terms of his damage. And then you've got someone like Terrell May, who's more of a workhorse, but still has a bit of offload in him. And then you've got someone like Fanua Pole, who's got the footwork as well. And Samuel Finu on the left edge. So all of a sudden, we're starting to find kind of different players who can like impact the game differently as well. So we've got that variety, and it's just very good to see, because usually we're like the slowest to kind of change with the landscape that's changing in the NRL.
And Nick, I was quite worried about the Royce Hunt signing, not so much because of what he provides, but that lack of minutes and the fact that Steph was going, and if Royce Hunt was going to be that replacement for Steph, I thought that was going to be a weakness and a downgrade in our squad. But I think the Terrell May signing makes the Royce Hunt signing a better signing.
Yeah, I've heard you say that before, and I agree. And like you just said, right, Royce Hunt was playing. What was he playing? Like 15 minutes or
15 to
18
20
minutes?
minutes most games.
Yeah, not many, right? So minimal minutes with a lot of impact though, off the bench for the Sharks. And I know that he came out when he signed. He came out with a comment in the media and said that he wants to get fitter, and he's told Benji he wants to earn every minute and he wants to play more minutes. And I thought, well, he's got a lot of work to do if he's going to be, a 40 to a 60-minute prop or even a 50-minute prop. But you're right, with May coming across, May will be the bigger minutes prop, putting in all of that energy and playing the larger portion of the game. And Hunt, that's great if he can get his work rate up. He can come on and play more minutes, and maybe we can play players like Seyfarth and Twal in shorter periods if they're both on the bench. I know you won't want them both there, Gary. But it bolsters our forward pack, which is only going to make it the job easier for the halves. Give Jerome a bit more of an opportunity to be creative, and I know we'll get to it, but I'd like to look at the outside backs too. We're getting there, not quite there, but we're getting a lot closer. There's a lot more potency across the field now.
And just with Stefano this year, I really felt that, like, realistically, if you just took away the contract things, I think that Benji Marshall probably should have produced his minutes. Obviously, because of the whole contract situation and everything that was going on around that, I think that's why I think Benji was like putting him on out there for probably longer minutes than he was able to back up on the field. But he probably could have done with a little bit more of like the kind of the Royce Hunt treatment. Probably not that extreme at the Sharks, because Royce Hunt was playing like really low minutes, but just like maybe 10 minutes here or there, I think that would have helped. But and then when Stefano was left and all we really had was Royce Hunt, I thought, oh, this could be like a really big mistake by Benji, just to try and like throw someone like that into Stefano's minutes and expecting him just to be able to have the same impact. But now that Terrell May, as you guys said, has come, we can kind of play Royce Hunt at more of his natural minutes with that impact as well. Because like, I know the Sharks have a lot of problems, but I think Fitzgibbon is a class coach, and if he has come to the decision that Royce Hunt is that kind of guy that the less he plays, the more you're going to get of him, then I think that if we stick to that as well, I think we'll get more return on investment for him.
It does sound a bit like Corey Horsburgh was supposed to be the Terrell May signing. From everything you read, it sounds like he'd accepted our offer and was just about to cross the line. I heard that the Raiders just in the end refused to let him go. They didn't want to release him. So
sounds like the same thing happened with Hetherington as well.
Yeah, same with Hetherington. So you know what? That's not a bad deal to lose out in Horsburgh. I think they probably would have had who am I thinking of? They probably would have had Royce Hunt already in the scopes as that prop to bring in for the impact. I think when we missed out on Horsburgh and then Hunt was announced, we all immediately thought, right, he was going to be the swap for Stefano. But bringing in Terrell May, if you ask me right now, or if you had asked me a couple of months ago, who would you take, Terrell May or Corey Horsburgh? And Horsburgh was playing a lot of reserve grade this year, right? So I think May was the obvious choice there. So we've done really well.
When speaking about Hunt a moment ago, Nick, you spoke about him wanting to get fitter and earn extra minutes. I guess it's a really big positive that he's shown up for preseason training 3 weeks early.
That's a huge sign, isn't it? And
Yeah.
even Taruva turning up yesterday for the unveiling of the sponsors and the new jerseys painted on the field. I know Benji came out and said, Taruva's not meant to be back for another few weeks, but he's already keen to get his hands and feet onto the ground and in and around the club, which is fantastic. I know Jerome's away at the moment, I think, but he's already been into Concord last week or the week before and was there spotted
You weren't
by the
there
media.
camping outside waiting for him to show up?
No, I actually didn't get the memo he was going out, so very disappointed, Gary. Probably the one night I wasn't camping out, but no, I'll have to try and get there when he comes in for day one training. So it's really exciting to see. And like Benji's come out and Richo as well in that press conference yesterday, the players and especially the new recruits are buying into what they've delivered to them. The reasons to come across is where they're trying to take the club, and it's exciting to see. Which is why I've also my one word was anticipation of what's ahead. It's very different to a year ago. This is one of the very few times I've actually, and I know Eddie would probably disagree, negative Eddie, but I think next year we've got real reason to believe that we're going to climb the ladder. And after 3 years at the bottom, I mean, how can you not get excited about the possibility of getting off the bottom of the ladder and closer to the 8? I've forgotten what it feels like.
Yeah, mate, it's been a long time. 2011, that game against the Warriors was the last finals game we played. That feels like a lifetime ago. And for Declan, it pretty much was a lifetime ago. Um, Now, Benji's obviously, and Richo is obviously doing a fairly good job of selling that direction for the club. Because last Friday, I think it was now, so a week ago, a re-signing that probably me especially didn't see actually happening. Fanua Pole re-signed with the club, Declan. Um, Good move for the club re-signing him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Gary is the mailman was telling us on the group chat that he was just
Mate,
going to
I
be
thought he
gone.
was
So
gone. Dead
yeah,
set, thought he was gone.
so yeah, that was a nice surprise. And yeah, I think it would have just been so like frustrating to not only lose Stefano, but then also Pole to the Storm, who are probably going to win the cup next year, and then they've got two of our best young front rows. But yeah, it's just a great victory for Benji Marshall and the club that someone like the Storm was interested, but he still re-signed with the club because he sees himself here, which is a great sign. And if he can get his defence sorted, we've got Terome and Fanua as two young up and coming props that could be our starting front rows for like the next 5 to 6 years. Kind of like Moses Leota and James Fisher Harris a little bit. Obviously not comparing them directly like for like, but it's just good to have stability in that position where good front rowers are kind of hard to come by. And obviously, I think Eddie and you guys talked about last week about how he's got a lot to work on, but he's got the talent there, and he has the work ethic as well to fix up that defense. So I'm really happy that a young player with options decided to stay with the club.
And it's different, isn't it, Declan? Because we don't see this. But usually we see another club. I was going to say a big club, but honestly, it's probably any club come and throw in a nice offer to one of our good players. And the good clubs have done it, right? Like Bellamy's taken Sean Bloor and Stefano away. Bole was probably going to be the third one. But for him to turn down the Melbourne Storm and the opportunity or the very extreme likelihood of definitely playing finals next year and having a crack at winning a premiership, then to turn that down and to stay at West Tigers, like it speaks volumes about the direction that Richo is selling and Benji is also selling for the club. Like I still have to shake my head and wonder how it happened. And as you said, like Gary was beating the drums and saying he's off to Melbourne, he's packed his bags and he's gone. But for that to come out and him to say no, I'm more than I'm so happy to stay at the club for another couple of years. I'm really excited about the direction, and that's the general line that anyone that signs with the club will come out and say, I'm excited about where the club's going. But something is shifting, and you have to put it down to Richo. I still think there's a big, strong Benji factor, even though he hasn't shown it yet in his coaching career, and it's still way too early. 2025 is going to be a major telling point with Benji and his ability to coach and are offside. I don't see any excuses. I won't say it's top 8 or bust. I'm not going to do a Steve for next year, but I do think we have to be nudging towards the 8 next season. So if we're not in that sort of 8th to 10th next season, I'd be disappointed.
Yeah, I do agree. It's a huge year for Benji Marshall. I know it's still young in his career, but it is almost make or break. Not that we, yeah, as you said, we have to make the 8, but you do have to, now that we have an actual decent roster, you do want to see kind of improvement because he's actually got good tools to work with. But just on Poli for a second, like everyone, like obviously all the media attention was on Stefano last year, but I think anyone who watched all the games, like us and like all the kind of like diehard fans of the Tigers, would probably all agree that Poli was much more consistent and kind of impacted the game much more consistently than someone like Stefano did. So just to have him re-sign with us and Stefano leave, honestly, I think if we were to choose between someone like Stefano or for 800k and maybe Poli for like that 550, 600, I reckon most of us would have picked Poli because of the consistency and because he's kind of more mobile and fit enough to play in the middle for longer minutes in the modern NRL. And yeah, it's just a huge coup to keep him. And I really hope that we try and sign Flannery Longo now from the Storm because it looks like Pappenhausen's staying for another year. So I'm not sure how his contract situation looks, but they're best mates from looking at Instagram. So I'd be very keen to try and get him over, to be honest.
Last question before we move on Pole, Nick. We've moved him around a little bit. We've had him play as prop. We've had him play in that 13 role. Where would you be playing him next year?
I would play him at prop, whether it's starting or bench. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think I'd put him at 13. 13 is a question. I'm not sure what's going to happen at 13. I read, I think it was just a media article today online that it was likely that Jack Bird was going to start at 13. I know that's been discussed on one of the recent pods here, whether he'd be fit enough and whether he could play big minutes at 13 or not. And there's so many variables. Is Bateman going to hang around? Where's his best position if he does? And based off, if you read between the lines, and as I shared in our chat, that little snippet of Benji at the press conference yesterday, I don't think Benji's overly keen for Bateman to still be at the club. But I'd definitely play Bolle at prop, Gary. Yeah, but like I said, I think he could be quite impactful coming off the bench. Not sure if I'd start him, but I guess that's what trials will be helpful for as well.
So you'd be looking at probably starting Clemmer?
I'd start Clemmer. I would. I know he's a bit of a plotter, but he's a good defender, and he's the elder statesman. I think he can help to lead that pack, especially with May coming into the team. I think May and Clemmer would be a pretty good starting pairing from the kickoff.
Now, sticking with the forwards for a moment, where we've even spoken about it on this pod that we're looking at an improved squad going into next year. So I thought we'd just do a quick comparison amongst our forwards, back and spine between last year and this year. Starting with you, Declan, our forward pack moving into 2025, how do you rate them compared to what we put out in 2024?
I think we kind of spoke about it. I think even though Papali'i was a bit of a maligned figure at the club, I think by the end of it, it is a little bit annoying because he probably found his role playing 13 for us. And obviously he was on too much money and he probably even at 13 didn't justify that pay packet. So I think it was understandable to move him on. And, he was like, it happened quickly because he's someone that other clubs would be interested in. So I don't begrudge the club for that, but I think he does leave a little bit of a hole. But I think in terms of compared to this last year or the start of this year, sorry, I think we're much stronger because obviously Poli is going to be a year older. Terrell Mays we've discussed as an upgrade on Stefano. What's it called? Samuel Afinu as well. He's got another year under his belt. Hopefully he doesn't have too much second year syndrome. But I think playing outside of like Jerome Luai, presumably, I think his game will just go to another level because he'll have much more space and much more time to do his thing. I think Seyfarth as well, after a breakout year, probably has his kind of knows what his role within the team is. So hopefully he can just build on that as well. So all in all, I think we're looking I think we're looking better. I think there's still some holes as there was last year. Bateman played right edge last year, so I'm not too sure, what's going to happen this time. I would like to recruit someone, but I'm not really sure who that is and what the kind of roster situation is with Jordan Miller's impending court case with Bryden's lawyers. Not sure how that's going, but yeah, that's
You got to plug in. You got to plug in, Declan. What are you doing?
Yeah, but yeah, Lee just can't help it, can he? He just loves to be a thorn on our side. But yeah, that's a question mark in terms of that right edge. And then I would still love to see the club recruit a 13. I was sad to see that Kobe Hetherington. It looks like that's kind of dead in the water a little bit. But Madge is keen to keep him because I think someone who can like kind of lock the scrum is something we're missing as well. I know we've got someone like Justin Matamua, but I've still got questions as to if he can become a first grade player. But you never know. Like maybe he could have a breakout season. But overall, I think we are much more improved because the forward pack has more experience. I'm a little bit worried. Guys like Api Coruscant, obviously he's a little bit older, so there's always that risk that he could, kind of like steadily decline as he gets older. But I think he's still got a few good years in him, especially with Loai coming. That takes a lot of pressure off him, so he doesn't have to try as hard all the time. But yeah, and then I'm really hoping that David Clemmer has a bit of a renaissance as well, because I think Steve said on the podcast he's not like 35 or anything like that, or like the age James Chalmers was his last year for us. He should still be able to produce good, solid minutes. So hopefully he plays better. But yeah.
Just so you mentioned Justin Matamua, Declan. Gary, I watched you shook your head. Now, on Matamua, there was a lot of hype about him a couple of years ago that he was going to be the next.
Including from me.
Yeah, including from you. He was going to be the next, the long-term lock coming through the ranks. Now, I know he's had a couple of goes and is probably disappointed. I wonder if that comes down to conditioning. And I only say that because in that press conference the other day, Shane Richardson made a point of calling him out and saying Justin Matamua has impressed coming in early and really stood up with the fitness. So I just wonder whether he's I know it's only early, it's preseason, but I just wonder whether his issue in the past has been due to his physical conditioning.
Yeah, I think that if you just look at all the best 13s in the game, like yes, they all have the ball playing ability, which Justin Mata does, but then they also have the base stats as well to back it up. So someone like Isaiah Yeo, he can easily run for like over 150 meters, make 40 tackles, offload the ball. So he's got that kind of traditional lock ability as well. But with Justin Matamua, I'm just not sure like what he excels at in terms of like an attack, defense, breaking tackles, offloading, quick play of the balls. When he just gets there, it just looks like the only thing he brings to the table is that ball playing ability. And to his credit, we did look better in attack when he was there. But for a long-term 13, I need to see more from him. And like maybe it is a conditioning thing, but I think it's just also just an overall kind of like damage with the ball in attack as well that I'm looking for him to improve if I'm going to give him that 13 jersey long term.
I also think we've messed up his development a little bit. I think going into it was Tim Sheen's season as coach. Going in, that was the year everyone thought he was going to have that breakout season, and we had that trial over in New Zealand where they played him in that lock role, and that was around the time of the 200 passes a day, all that sort of talk coming out of the club, and he went out in that game and he threw about 200 passes in that game and some really poor passes as well. And it's almost like he hasn't recovered from that. He was everyone was talking him up as starting the year owning that lock position, and that totally disappeared after that trial, and he was barely seen again that year. And not only was he kind of pulled out of that NRL squad, a lot of weeks he was the 18th man. And so instead of going back and playing reserve grade and working on his game in reserve grade, he wasn't getting football because we had him as that 18th man who didn't get to play games. And I just think we've damaged his development a little bit. But I also, it's probably just at the point now where to get over that, he may need to go to another club.
And I'll throw another name that I think who I think actually I'd put ahead of Matamua to get that 13 jersey. I reckon Ketler Lily, even though he played a
Yeah.
little bit of first grade last season, and he didn't stand out particularly. Like he didn't do much wrong, but you could tell he was probably debuted a little bit before he was ready, as with a lot of players last season. He's someone, if he can just put on a little bit of size, he's got that like ball, that damaging ball ability to run with the ball. Then he's also got a pass in him as well. Like I'm not sure he's as skillful as Maramura because he doesn't have that 5'8" background from the juniors, but he's definitely someone who can play that kind of lock role for us, shifting to playmakers, but then having that kind of ball carrying threat as well on him. If he can just put a little bit more size on in the off season.
Yeah, he's got good natural skill, Kit. I do like the way he plays. I just want to say though, Gary, I don't think Justin Matamu was the only one that did it, or that suffered a bit from that 200 passes a game. I think the entire NRL team suffered from that 200 passes mentality because it took them the entire season of 2023 to figure out that wasn't the way to play. And Sheens didn't even see it that year. So, I don't know. I love
Yeah,
Tim Sheens. I
it
just
hurt
don't
Tim Sheens
understand
as well.
it massively. I love Sheensy. I was kind of excited, maybe a bit nostalgic, when he re-signed with the club and took over the head coaching job. But yeah, that didn't hold up very well, did it? His attacking plan just did not work.
So much for a quick comparison on our forward pack between 24 and 25. I think we just spoke about it for 10 minutes. So a quick comparison, Nick, on our backs between 24 and 25.
Um, I like Sonia Taruva coming over. I know you've said Gary, you'll probably be a centre. I'm
That's more so
interested.
based off what I think the club signed him as,
Yep.
not what I think his best position is.
Okay, I haven't seen enough of him at centre. Did he play centre for Penrith? I don't know how much he played there at all. So yeah, I like him as a finisher. So I'm keen to see how he goes in our colours first of all. Whether that's on the wing or centre to begin with, I'm not sure. Jarrell Skelton, I haven't seen enough of him either, but he's a big boy, and I know his first day of training was today, which is Friday, sorry. He does look big. I've watched a few of his highlights tapes, and I love the way he runs the ball. He's a very hard runner of the ball, bit of height with him too. So I think he will definitely add to the pack. You're talking about backs, you can't go past Jerome Luai. Like I'm putting all my eggs in the Luai basket. He's got me very excited with anticipation for 2025. What he's going to bring. He's just that little cream on top of Appy, isn't he? So Appy was the first one that really came across and has changed or showed what the Tigers are capable of bringing to the club. But I think Jerome's going to complement him massively, and with the two of them, all of a sudden we've got a real attraction there. Why players would want to come and play for the club. So, but yeah, apart from that, Lockie, Galvin 1 year in, excited to see what he can do year two. I know some people have said second year syndrome, but the way he plays his football and the way he enjoys his football, I can't see him going backwards. I can only see him going forwards next season. And as we said before, Declan, 2025 is going to be a massive defining year for the club. And we have to improve vastly, not just climb off the bottom. We've got to improve vastly for Lockie to want to be there beyond 2026 and going forward.
Yeah, I was just thinking this today. Obviously, our backline is night and day compared to last season, but would you guys have, with the benefit of hindsight, tried a little bit harder to keep Junior Tupou at the club? Like, because if he plays wing, then you could put Truva at centre, his preferred position that he wants to play, and then that looks like a much better backline. But now we're kind of hoping that Luke Lalili or like Charlie Staines plays on that wing spot. But then you could obviously play Truva at wing, but then that opens the door for someone like Naden, not Naden, but like someone like Toa or Adam Dury to play centre, which is kind of not ideal either. So I don't know. I just like, look, with the benefit of hindsight, I'm just a little bit. I just wondered if it, like, maybe we should have tried a little bit harder to keep Junior Tupou because, like for a little bit longer, because I still think he had a little bit of a potential in him. But yeah, what do you guys reckon?
I liked what I saw from Luke Lee last season. I thought the limited amount of games he played for an 18-year-old kid, I thought he came in and did a really good job. Preferably, I'd like to see him spend a little bit more time playing in the lower grades. I think that would be probably best for his development. So having Junior Tupou there to kind of hold him back a little bit probably wouldn't have been a bad idea because if I have to choose between Staines and Luke, I'm probably going to choose Luke. I just think there's more upside there. Um, but I think it could have been beneficial for him to have another 12 months playing in the lower grades.
I probably agree with you too, Gary. I'm just looking at the stats. Would you put Luke Lally and Sunny Taruva on both sides of the field if they were wing and centre? Because it's not a very tall combination, is it? You can just see high balls going out in that corner and, you know, a bit of trouble
And
in
and
defending those.
and quite inexperienced as well. You got an 18-year-old
Yeah,
playing with a guy that you're moving from the wing to the centres. So how he's going to adjust to that defensive workload because it's a lot different, a lot more key decisions need to be made
yeah.
in that centre role. So if you are playing both of them, you're probably better to try and separate them.
I mean, I suppose Penrith get away with it because they've got, two that, like when Taruva was there, like probably the shortest back
Yeah.
line in
So,
the comp. And then, when they played the Roosters in that first week of the finals, who had everyone was above 6'5", but they just couldn't like get the ball to the wing. So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one. But yeah, it's just
And Olam short as well, so
yeah,
that's a
that's true.
consideration as well.
mm.
Yeah,
I guess
so
I guess you're talking about the shortest, Penrith backline there, Declan. You look at the way Luke Lally runs the ball; he runs it hard, a bit Toto like.
mm,
He's only a kid too, so yeah, give him. Be interested to see how he develops over the next couple of years. But he could really establish himself as a winger.
yeah.
I hope he gets to play quite a bit of first grade this year. But yeah, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see Gary with how he. I don't know if he'll start. I don't know if we'll start maybe Charlie Staines on one wing round one. I You're shaking your head again. I think he brings a little bit. I still think Charlie Staines has got some good value there. I think he'd be better off with some quality around him, and I think we're building in that space. So I wouldn't say no if Charlie was on the wing round one. Gary.
I would be a little bit keen to say no to that. I just don't see like that. There's just not enough upside for me. You can tell he tries really hard, and he leaves it out on the field, but he just doesn't have that like X factor to start a set. And maybe I'm wrong, and you're right. And like with better players, better forwards, and it all just kind of like flows on. It has a flow on effect where he is kind of like at Penrith, where he pretty much just had to be like solid and then finish the tries, and that kind of brought the best out of him because then he could show his speed. Like maybe that's the best case scenario for us, but yeah, I'm not sure. I think I agree with Gary. I think if I was to choose between one of them, I would go Luke at the moment, just purely because he does kind of fit that mold a little bit more of starting sets off strongly. And then if I'm going to debut a young player in a position, I think wing, or not debut, sorry, but if I'm going to start a young player in a position early on the season, I think wing is the position you do it because young players have shown that they can impact the game like from quite a young age, like they don't really need to play like 30, 40, 50 first grade games like other positions do. So I think that's something for Luke's favour. And then also, I think that someone like Makasini as well, I know he's still in high school and he's still really, really young, but I reckon that like the chances of him making his first grade debut that like this season towards the end of the year are quite high as well. So I think he's someone that we should like keep in our red books for the back end of the season.
The decision around Luke and Staines, I agree pretty much totally with what Declan just put forward. If I'm the opposition and I have Charlie Staines on one wing and Skelton on the other one, I'm kicking to Charlie Staines' side every single time because he just doesn't have that ability to bring the ball back hard enough. He is okay when he can use his pace on the back of a quick play the ball on that second like hit up. But even when he hits the line, he gets bent backwards more often than not. So if you had a situation where the other side was primarily kicking the Skelton all day and he was then coming in and scooting from dummy half and taking that second hit up off the back of a quick play the ball, that's where his value is coming out of your own end. But I think sides would be just kicking to him pretty much constantly or kicking the buller and in between them and trying to get those two isolated to start off the sets. I think Luke does a much better job bringing it out of our own end.
And plus, I have no problem with Staines for depth as well. I think he's a really good option to come in
Yep.
when you have injuries because obviously, like you can't with the salary cap, you can't have world beaters all the time. And I think he's someone who has that reliability, but then also he can cover fullback as well. So, he's got that going for him as well. So I have no doubt that he's going to play like a role for us this season. And like if it was someone like between Staines and Fatape to play that way, because we did see a little bit of that last season as well, I'd go for Staines every time because he's got that reliability for sure.
Okay, finishing off with the backs, moving on to I've been criticised for my wonderful game, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It will be back when I'm hosting during the season when we've got more to talk about. But I am going to just put Eddie's game out there. It's a quick game of buy, sell, and hold. One hold each. I'll be nice today and let you hold one. Starting with you, Nick. Shane Richardson is now showing his worth in the CEO role.
Boy, 100%. You can't say anything otherwise to that. He's showing his worth 100%. Like, look at the players that have come across, and like we've said, he's almost landed everybody. What have we made? 6 signings, coming up to this next season, and the only 2 that we missed were because the clubs didn't want to release Hetherington and name please, Gary.
Hetherington and Horsburgh.
And Horsburgh, correct. Thank you. So that's obviously, Richardson showing his leadership. Look at the deal we've just signed with Pepper Money. Like, apparently it's a record deal. I wasn't aware that it was a record deal. Is that in terms of length or money value, or the fact that it's covering both NRL and NRLW? Like, what's getting us across the line for the record? Do we know?
I from what they said, all that's being kept under wraps. I think just the messaging that it's the biggest deal we've ever had.
Okay, well, I'll land that. And to be honest, it's probably really burying Bryden's a little bit more too. That's the second time Bryden's, well, that's the third time now it's been mentioned in the pod. But no, it's good to see another major sponsor on the jersey, which is fantastic. So, I'm all about Richo. I love him. He's a great leader. People make fun of the size of his suits and the way that he looks, but I'll tell you what, he's a much better looking CEO than Justin Pascoe, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah, because that's how we want to judge our CEOs on their looks.
No, 100% not at all. But you do hear that sort of thing. But you know what? He could probably double as a Santa Claus too. He's got a bit of a Santa Claus look about him. Old Richo.
Okay, sorry, mate. Go.
I did like it when he said that, the West Tigers honour all of their contracts, as if that was, some statement that yes, like if you sign a legally binding contract, we will honour it. This is us taking the high ground with John Bateman.
Yeah, because you have a choice in that matter, Declan.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, you get the second one. Over this off-season, any fullback that's looked to be off contract, Eddie Otto has been all over. West Tigers should be signing him. Now, the buy, sell, hold is Dream Buller ran over Eddie Otto's dog. Buy, sell, or hold?
I'm going to buy that. Poor Buller, you just can't get in Eddie's good books though. And yeah, it's not even just like Ryan Pappenhausen you could understand because, he has like one of the best fullbacks in the game, so I can understand that. But just Clint Gutherson, who's just, old, broken down, like some might say ready for the retirement home, which we have been accused of saying before. But Eddie just loved him. It was just like, oh, he's going to set standards. He's going to teach Dream Buller how to be a good fullback. But yeah, sorry, Eddie, I just couldn't see that one. Maybe he's a centre, but he wanted too much money. And yeah, I'm just not, I wasn't happy with that. I wasn't on board with that one. But, he definitely tried his case, didn't he? And yeah, hopefully Buller can do something to get in Eddie's good books again next year because I think Mr. Otto has shown that he's ready to hold a grudge and start some sort of movement against Buller. So he needs to hit the ground running next year for sure to avoid that.
He holds so much of a grudge against Jareem that he calls him Jeremy.
Jeremy Buller.
Every time he mentions him in the chats, Jeremy Buller. Come on, Eddie.
Okay, you tried to dodge this one earlier, Nick. You don't get a chance to dodge it. I'm actually going to take away your hold on this because you did try and dodge it earlier. West Tigers will make the top 8 in 2025.
Yeah, I'll buy that. We'll come 8th.
Declan?
prediction. Yeah, you sounded very confident there, Nick. Really. No, I genuinely think we'll come like seventh or eighth. I think that we could be the Warriors of 2 years ago, the Bulldogs of this year, and just ride that momentum with new recruits, kind of a young coach in the second year with more of a kind of understanding of what's necessary. Most of all, better players. I've already said that, but I'd like to emphasize that again. You know, Jerome Luai, like in his prime.
So you can say Jeremy Luai.
Jeremy Luai, yeah, he's coming as well. But yeah, I really think that we can ride that momentum this year and then manage to finally get the top eight. You know, I might have my hopes brutally disappointed again, but I'm ready to take that risk. I think.
Could it be a fairy tale year, Declan?
I think
Could it,
so.
20
Yeah.
years on, could it be a run
Well,
of
you're
8
going all
games?
the way to the premiership now, Nick.
Well, Gary, if you cast your mind back 20 years, I think we were 12th after about 14 rounds. We were woeful. And then out of the blue, we won 8 of the last 10. And in the last 4 finals games, it was an incredible fairy tale run, wasn't it? I think we remember, except Declan was probably still in nappies, but we remember being the elder statesman of this pod. But who knows? You never know. Maybe we'll get on a run. Maybe Jeremy Luai is going to bring some Panthers magic, and maybe we'll be putting that 5th ring on his 5th finger next September or October. Wouldn't that be amazing?
So is that your inner Jordan Prime prediction for the year? Like the
That's
West
my.
Tigers win the premiership?
We're going to win a premiership. We're going to win more than 3 games in a row.
Look, you know what? I think at some point Jordan's prophecy will come true in the wrong season, so it doesn't count. But I think this season we'll get past that 2 wins in a row, and we'll get 3, possibly even 4 in a row. I see a much better season for us in that regard for 2025.
It does feel good that we have a genuine star for in our team because you look at those bench ads and Jerome Luai. Apparently, he was handpicked out of everyone from Foxtel. I'm not really sure how I feel about the Tigers going. That was an interesting creative choice to put him in that. But it just, yeah, as we said before, it just feels a bit different, doesn't it? That we've got someone like that in our club in the 7 jersey, the most important position on the field. You know, an upgrade from Aiden Caesar as good as he was, and then I'm a little bit hesitant on. I think Lachlan Galvin might have a little bit of second year syndrome because looking at him in the Prime Minister's 13 game, it was very clear that he didn't have as much free reign as he did with us, and he kind of struggled to be as efficient with less touches. Whereas this year, you can tell that he kind of just got free reign to do whatever he wants.
Yeah, he got the ball whenever he wanted it this season.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but obviously with Jerome Luai, I was paying him so much money. He's in the prime of his career. Obviously, he's going to have the ball in his hands more. So I think it's going to be a bit of a learning curve for Galvin to adjust to that. But hopefully, I don't expect it to be too much, and I still think he'll be really good for us. But I'm just a little bit. That's in the back of my head a little bit.
And how good is that binge ad, Declan? I mean, I've bought 5 dressing gowns, 1 for each of the family, and I've bought 5 binge accounts, 1 for each of the family as well. That's how good it is.
Yeah, he's got.
I'm glad you got the Foxtel as well, because I don't think Foxtel was really trying to sell dressing gowns.
Well, when I saw Jeremy Luai in the dressing gown, I had to get one, Gary.
But for me, that ad just looked like it was the same hotel room he filmed his Welcome to West Tigers thing from. So I think whatever hotel room he was in England, I think got a bit of a workout.
Yeah, he likes a sponsorship, doesn't he? He's got a few business ventures going on. I just bought one of his T-shirts as well from Universe 7, so I'll be wearing that if he ever comes to an interview with us, just to try and get in his good books. But yeah, it's good to see.
I've already started growing my hair for next year. This time next year, it's going to be long, black, curly, and tied up in a little man bun.
So you're going to dye the hair?
Yeah, I'll dye it as well, Gary. Yeah, there'll be no more grey. It's going to be jet black. Going to be looking very Samoan this time next year.
Okay, Nick. We will be stuck with John Bateman in 2025.
No, I'll sell that. I can't see it happening. It's untenable. It's been said that many times, and like we were saying in our group chat, you just had to look at Benji Marshall's, the way his body language was when he was asked that question. about whether he'd like to repair the damage that's been done between him and John. He sort of paused for about 5 seconds and said, yeah, and then moved on. So I cannot see Bateman coming back. I think Rich will be doing everything he can possibly do to pack John's bags and usher him out the door at Concord. Still.
Now, I know I did see the article today linking him to a possible move to Souths, but does he still have something to offer in the NRL, Declan?
I think he does. Not as an edge back rower, though. I think those days are behind him. He really struggled to cover ground on the edge. I mean, I remember particularly when we played at the Sharks home stadium, and when Mulatalo had the ball, like I think he just ran around John Bateman off the kick return at least 3 times. Like it was really bad. He was really struggling to keep up with them. So I think his days as an edge back rower are behind him. I think that if he wants to still add value to an NRL team, I think he needs to move to 13. I think he's got that kind of toughness, that experience, that defensive capability to kind of perform that sort of role for a team. I think that, obviously maybe in a team with more established senior players as well, that could kind of help sell them a little bit more. I think that kind of being in a rebuilding year, you could tell he didn't really have the temperament to play with young players. I think that's probably fair enough to say at the moment. So I think he does have some value, but I think he's going to have to modify his game a little bit. Whether he's keen to do that or not, I'm not too sure. But I think if I was advising him, that's what I'd be saying to him at the moment.
He played in the 13 for a few games for us, Declan. Do you, having a look at back those games, do you think he worked in that role though?
Look, I'll be honest, Guy. Every time we've lost a game, I've blanked it out from memory. So there's nothing. There's nothing coming.
So you remember like 10 games in the last 3 years.
Exactly. Yeah. So nothing is coming to mind greatly. Like obviously, like the team hasn't been going great as a whole, but I just can't see him playing on that right edge again for anyone. Like unless he's playing in like a gun team that like he just kind of has to play that Luke Garner role where he just runs holes and like just like kind of sets off the pocket of his half, then I just can't see him having an impact. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For mine, I don't think his game translates that well, especially at his age and probably slowing up a little bit. I don't think his game translates well into the NRL now. The the crossfield running and trying to find a hole, I don't think has worked for him since probably the start of his first season here. I thought he had some decent games there, but as time's gone on, I think it's got worse. And I think the games that he played for 13 for us, I found that crabbing across the field and his awkwardness to run off. If you want him to play that ball playing role, there's an awkwardness to try and run off him because you don't exactly know what hole he's going to hit, where he's going to run, and for me, I find it hard to see. Like maybe a team like South who are trying to plug a couple of holes that they have, they may bite at him, but I think we're going to be paying a lot of it, Declan.
So is that your advice for him to retire?
Mate, my opinion is that there's a big chance we'll be stuck with him next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nick said it. I wouldn't be too disappointed because we don't really have any other solid option in that position. So obviously,
it's really light.
Yeah. So obviously, the ideal would be to move him on. But if we could just smoke the peace pipe and come to some sort of like understanding, like it would be better than someone like Porter in that edge spot, like someone
100%.
like a happy John Bateman. I do think that would be. I wouldn't hate that. There's other players in the past that like you just like not just they have to go. Like there's no way they can stay. But I've got a little bit. I know Eddie. I can hear him getting angry as he listens to this. But yeah, I just can't.
Don't worry, he won't listen.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, what am I saying? But yeah, I think that if both parties come to some sort of understanding, I think that it's not the end of the world for next year.
Nick, the final question I did have down, and I was going to skip it until Declan pretty much just raised it. Second row, is the biggest hole in our squad.
Yeah, it is. I know I've said I could put Alex Seyfarth into second row, and I have heard other people say that as well, that he could potentially. That stop shaking your beard around, Gary. I know you disagree, and I disagree too. Like Seyfarth, he's a rotation prop, but I think he could probably plug that hole if we absolutely needed him there. And like Declan was saying before, I was really disappointed that Isaiah left. I think if he had have hung around for at least one more season, he probably would have enjoyed his time a bit more in 2025 with the roster that we were starting to build when he made his decision to leave. But he's gone. But he would have been that back rower that we needed on the other side to Sam Weller. So yeah, I think we are short there. I don't know who you could bring in from our current squad apart from plugging a hole, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to do.
I do really agree with those comments about Ice. I think going into next season, we're probably in the best position to make use of him. When you have Luai on one side of the field and Galvin on the other, both who were pretty good at putting a second rower into a hole, I I, I think that could have been great for him. I
Yeah.
won't dwell on it too much because he's now gone, but I think that role, like the setup of our squad moving the next season, was probably the best opportunity we were going to have to get the best out of him, Declan.
I don't know. It just feels like with Papali, it just was a marriage that just got off on the wrong foot even before he got to the club, and it just never really kicked off. So I don't know. Like I know that he like on paper like he could, but I just think that he just didn't want to be here the entire time, and I think that translated to like I know he tried his hardest the whole time, but it just never really clicked, and I think like his heart just wasn't here.
He came for the money, didn't he?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And and there was a vast improvement in his game once he signed with Penrith.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite telling as well. The fact all those stories that were coming out before he came, and then the form we saw from him up until he signed with Penrith, and that quick turnaround in the form after he signed with Penrith, I think was quite telling about his time with the West Tigers. Uh, Also, we had another big day out at West Tigers headquarters out at the Zurich Centre, as it's now called. Seems we're going to be talking about sponsors. I thought we might as well give one of them a plug. Uh, Declan, big day out at the Centre of Excellence yesterday. New major sponsor in Pepper Money and new jerseys revealed. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, mate, it looked like a bit of an event. I'm surprised you and Steve weren't invited. Did you guys like a free cocktail or two at these corporate events that none of us seem to get invited to for some reason? But yeah, it looked quite fun, didn't it? But yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I had to Google what paper money was, and I'm still not 100% sure. But it's just good to get a major sponsor like down for next year. I think we were all kind of a little bit worried that it hadn't yet been sorted out. So I'm glad that's been done. The club's kind of like signaling that it's a good deal. It's better than the Brydens lawyers deal. Oh, that's the kind of rumors that we've all heard. I hope that's true. It's good as well that the head of the sponsor isn't our chairman as well. So I think that's what I'm most happy about. That we managed.
He didn't buy that position with the
No,
sponsorship. It doesn't come with it.
not yet. Anyway, we're not sure if he's made inquiries with the new board, but I hope not. So yeah, that's good to get out of the way. In terms of the jersey, I thought when I first saw the 2D print of it, I wasn't that blown away, but I think it looks a lot better actually on the players. I think Nick brought it up. I think it'd be much better if the logo was integrated a little bit better. Like if it was just a black background, I think that it would just be 10 out of 10 the jersey. But I think that I'm pretty happy with it, and if we win a lot in it, I think that I'll probably buy one just purely because there's no Brydens lawyers on it for next year.
First time I'm buying the jersey in a number of years. I'm really looking forward to it. A little bit of a crossover between the '05 jerseys, Nick, and
Yeah.
the traditional chevron that we've had for the last couple of years. Your thoughts on it?
Yeah, they don't look too dissimilar to what we've had the last couple of years, but you're right, the honeycomb down the sides is that touch of 2005, I suppose. So, yeah, when I saw it, I was expecting something a bit vastly different, but it wasn't overly different. Just subtle changes. No, I like the jerseys. But just on that event at Concord, it was really well done. Like that, they had all the media there, and to have that massive, sheet over the top of the jerseys that was sprayed on the field, and taking that off, and all the players lined up in front with all the cameras there, that looked really good. And then the cameras panned around to all of the special guests that were up on the balcony, looking over the edge of the balcony there. And I'm pretty sure, Gary, I did freeze it at one point and zoomed in. I thought I saw you standing in the background at the buffet. Was that you, or were you not there?
I think you got that mixed up with the Pearl Jam videos from last week, mate.
That could be it. Yes, could be right. Looked like a good event.
Yeah, Pepper Money's fairly big in the non-bank loaning space. Probably the biggest name sponsor we've had in a couple of years. I wouldn't mind seeing someone like Meriton come back. But I think getting Pepper Money's a pretty good get, Nick.
I don't care who comes on board. The bigger the company, the better. So I don't know a lot about Pepper Money, but if I ever need any more cash, I'll be going straight to Pepper Money and putting in a request through there. So I'm very happy they're on board. Welcome aboard, Pepper Money. If you'd like to sponsor the pod, if you've got any money left over, give Joel already a call. Those boys aren't too busy. One's holidaying, the other one's living it up, in the nightlife somewhere within Sydney. So get in touch.
Yeah, we're quite cheap. We have very reasonable prices, so can negotiate.
Thanks for joining me tonight, boys. Apparently, Eddie is very well prepared, apparently. So I'm sure we'll see him back in the next week or so. Whenever there's some kind of news, to be back here hosting and get me back into a more traditional role and not hosting. So hopefully we see a bit more news before Christmas comes around and we can squeeze out one more pod, Declan.
Yeah, but Eddie doesn't like coming on when it's positive, so he's going to have to wait until something negative happens in the headlines. So I'm not too sure when that'll be, because everything tends to quiet down for Christmas. So we might not see Eddie until we've lost our first game, I think.
We're in trouble if we go on a long winning streak next year. He'll never be on.
No, he'll never. Especially if Dream Villa is playing well. Just no chance.
You know what might get Eddie back on the pod, Declan, is the club announces a John Bateman extension. Just in time for Christmas.
Mate, just him still being here, once we get halfway through January, he'll have a meltdown and he'll be back.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, as I said, boys, thanks for joining me. Thanks for listening, everyone. Keep an eye out. We'll be back as soon as there's a bit more news.
Thank you.
Thanks, boys.